Welcome to Gapology Radio with your hosts Mark Tinas and Brian Brokoff, authors of the leadership development books Gapology, IMBAR, and Speed of Purpose. At Gapology, our purpose is to help leaders achieve their greatest potential. To learn more about our groundbreaking books and training services, visit our website, gapology.org.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gapology Radio. As you look at your leadership rhythm and think about how you can inspire your team and yourself, we have a nice resource for you. First, of course, this podcast gives great tips, and you can definitely use our messages here. But we also have two books, Gapology Inspirations and Gapology Inspirations Volume 2, that have super short sections with messages tied to Gapology that you can read, reflect on, and share with your teams. Especially if you lead other leaders, these books provide fun, easy-to-read messages that you'll enjoy, and they can really supplement our core book, Gapology, and this podcast. Available through Amazon.com. You can also find links on our website, gapology.org. And as for tonight, we'll be sharing some key traits of winning leaders, things to really think about how they might apply or not to your own leadership style. So let's go ahead and jump right in with Mark Tinas. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for tonight. I know I say that just about every week, but I'm always excited for these podcasts.
You only get excited on Tuesday nights.
I think so.
Don't tell Joe that.
Yeah, definitely don't tell her that. But this is going to be a fun topic. This is one that I really love teaching. So this is an element that we primarily just teach in our workshops. We really don't do much else with this. It's kind of a research type of a topic, something that came from our original research. But this is one of the initial slides that's in our workshop where we give a little bit of the history on where Gapology came from, and we talk about all that, and we talk about winning leaders, and we describe what winning leaders are and that kind of thing. And this is, we're going to talk tonight about 10 traits of winning leaders. Okay, so 10 traits of the winning leaders. And so we'll walk through this for everybody today. But I got to tell you, Mark, in the sessions, I see this is where, and it's probably the fourth slide, maybe third slide, and people just immediately start scribbling notes on this slide. You can always see their engagement level just goes up like amazingly. So at this point,
well, everyone listening tonight likely should take notes.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is something that they probably won't find anywhere unless they hire us to come and do a workshop. So there's some good stuff here. So.
Well, let's tell them we were going to do this as 10 podcasts.
Right. Yep.
And we said, no. Let's go ahead and knock it out. Let's knock out the 10 traits of winning leaders. Let's knock it out in one podcast.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through them quickly. You need to take notes. I think the key here is ask yourself if you have that trait. And if you don't have the trait that we describe out of the 10, work on it, because the winning leaders had all 10 of the traits. Mm-hmm. So you can have all 10 of these and you're unstoppable. Fair enough?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, if you want to know more about each of these, so we'll give an overview, but if you want to know more about each of these, we've actually done podcasts on many of these topics. So a lot of really good detail. Just kind of go back through our catalog of episodes and you'll probably find some really good information there.
I attended a Gapology workshop that Brian conducted recently, and he goes through these as one of the slides. He does a great job of going through them with the group as part of Gapology. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to walk you through them, tonight, so that you would have these. And again, they are a point of self-reflection. So you need to ask yourself, is this me? Do I have this? And if you've got it, move on to the next one. Because if you can capture all 10 of these, you are literally unstoppable. Your career is going to explode.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So you want to jump in?
The other thing they need to know is the order is irrelevant.
Oh, yeah.
So number 1 is not number 1. It's just 1 through 10. Number 10 is not lesser than number 1, etc. So these are 10, and we consider them equal, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's not in an order. It's just a list.
In our research, these were the 10 things that we found that the top performing group possessed. They owned. They executed these things. And if you know them, you can go after them. And you may say, wow, I don't have that one. You can go after it and you'll be better for it. So,
right. And they were also very consistent. So we saw it so when we looked at the winning leaders, we saw these 10 traits in all of the winning leaders. It was something that was very consistent. And it was interesting how some of these things really jumped out at you. Just, like the first one, when Mark goes through the first one, this one we saw in every single winning leader. It was something that was very, very consistent. So,
let's pause there and just back up. So one of the things we did when we were with the top performers in a given organization, we documented the things they were great at. We tried to capture the essence of why they were winning. So our pursuit of Gapology was about to understand winning and how in a given business with all equal opportunities, how certain leaders were blowing everyone else away. So we're trying to understand that. And so we would try and capture the leadership traits that equaled that. In that process, we found Gapology, which was incredible. And it's changed. I don't know if we've hit 1 million lives yet, but hundreds of thousands, certainly.
Yeah.
But these were the top 10 traits that we found that were consistent in the top performers, the winning leaders. We called them the A group. We called them winning leaders. They had these 10. Fair to say?
Yep. Perfect.
Let's do it.
All right.
So the first one, again, there's order is irrelevant, was they had an eternal curiosity. So we found that winning leaders were continuously curious. They didn't lose this. They tended to lead with questions rather than telling. They asked questions. They wanted to know why. They wanted to know how. They were curious. And because they were curious, they always connected behavior to the top performance. And that's the key. Top performers are driven by a specific set of behavior. If you can understand that, you can replicate it. And they got that. So they were curious. The other thing that was evident, this is a big deal. If you're taking notes, write this down. They knew that curiosity was part of getting better. And when you're trying to be great, it's a never-ending process. So you're always getting better. So the pursuit of greatness, you never get there. In your mind, you never get there. And you're always curious about the next step and the next thing you can do to achieve it, etc. So they were eternally curious.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So, and the thing that I found interesting was that they were curious throughout all of the different elements of their roles. They always wanted to know why. So, why was training working or not working? Why do some team members understand priorities and why do some not? Why are some committed where others aren't? They were always asking these questions. And in our workshops, when we talk about this one, a lot of people start nodding their heads. And then as we go throughout the workshop, we always refer back to this because this is something that's very consistent throughout all of Gapology. So no matter which gap that you're working on, remain curious. That's one of those key traits.
Yeah, and they would go to their top performers, and they would be asking, "How are you achieving this incredible metric, this number?
Yep.
How are you exceeding the expectation that we set?"
Right.
And they're curious about what the behaviors are that equal that, and because they know if they can figure that out, they can replicate it. They can pass it on to others, and others can be achieving these great numbers. It's an amazing consistency within the winning leader group that they remain curious, and we called it eternally. So that's the first one. The next one was they set clear expectations, which is really one of the foundations of Gapology. Clear expectations are critical. We believe in 3 to 5 expectations. We believe that they're measurable, that they're behavioral. We talk in Gapology about an index card exercise where we hand an index card to the subordinates, the team, and to the leader. We have the leader write down the expectations of the team, and then we have each of the team members write down the expectations and see what the match rate is.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that in the winning leaders, the match rate was 87%. That was the A group. And in the C group, the match rate was 14%. So the difference was 87 to 14. That wouldn't be a good football game.
No, not at all.
No. And so the difference was clear expectations. The team knows the expectations. So when the team knows the expectations, they can achieve those things. The top performing group was very clear on their expectations, and they were measurable. They weren't some obscure thing. They were defined by a metric that equaled the behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. You could really feel it in those businesses when you walked in. There's a hum going on in the room. I mean, it was a well-oiled machine. People just, they knew what they were responsible for, and they did it. It was very, very clear between that and then the C group.
The A group was funny. So yeah, the 87 to 14, the A group was very unhappy with the 87.
Yeah, right.
They thought it was not.
Yeah.
They expected that perfect 100 and they didn't get it. They got 87. So that was the second one.
All right.
Number 3 is we found that the winning leaders rejected mediocrity, that they viewed it as the enemy of greatness, that they were not willing to accept it. So a lot of leaders today think, so-and-so is good enough. They do okay. That will keep the team from achieving greatness, period. And so they rejected that. And they focused on greatness, and that good enough was not good enough. That okay was not good enough. And that greatness was the standard, and that they could help the team get there. And they just were not willing to accept mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
What else on that one?
Yeah, they really despised being in the B group. So if for any of the important metrics, they were in the B group, they really despised that. That's really the biggest thing that I saw, is that it ate at them until they got off that list. They wanted to always be in the A group.
Yeah. So in Gapology, we talk about the A group being the top 10%, the B group being 80%, the middle, and then the C group being the bottom 10%. And the fact that the bottom 10% eliminates the top 10%'s performance. And we end up with this B group, this middle group.
Yep.
And the thing that the great leaders do is they understand that whatever that A group is doing, they need to understand it, because it can be spread to the entire group. And then everybody wins at a totally different level.
Yep, exactly.
Moving on then.
All right, number 4.
Number 4 is accepting responsibility. So we found that the winning leaders were willing to accept responsibility. When they were wrong, they were wrong. They called it out. It was an excellent trait, and it really created a credibility. So they owned it. When they didn't achieve a number, they owned it. When they made a mistake, they owned it. They stepped up and owned it. So credibility soared, respect soared. And so accepting responsibility is a respect builder that is of great significance, and it's somewhat rare today. I see it. I don't see it everywhere. Let's put it that way. And it's important, and I think all of us as human beings should learn to accept responsibility.
Yeah, I also really felt a sense of ownership, that they exhibited a sense of ownership. So they own their results, they own their team's performance, good or bad. But one of the common things that I saw there was that when the team won, they're very quick to celebrate the team. And I thought about that. So, when you look at accepting responsibility, it's not accepting the praise and so forth, but it's accepting the fact that they own the team's mindset. And so part of that is celebrating the team's wins, providing recognition, standing ovations, all those kinds of things. They really accepted responsibility for all of those things.
Yeah, they really give the winning back to the team. They don't take credit for it as the leader. They give it back to the team. It's a significant leadership trait. They honor the team for the performance. The team did it. They would step away the fact that they were the leader, step away from that and say, the team achieved this. So we found that to be a significant trait. And again, repeating, these are not in any order. These were the 10 that we found. And we didn't know what we were going to find. These weren't written in advance.
Right.
It was like, wow, this group really accepts responsibility.
Yep.
So that was a big deal.
All right, number 5.
Listen to create value.
Yep.
So we found that the winning leaders, the top performers, tended to listen more than they spoke. And they listened on purpose because they knew that it made the individual that was speaking feel valued. So they created value in their team by listening to them. And they thanked them for what they said. And it creates engagement. It creates a sense of pride and ownership that can't be created in any other way. We found the other leaders to tend to talk over the team. So picture that as the opposite: to interrupt, to speak, to talk versus listen. And we found that the greatest listeners were the winning leaders. They listened, they thanked, and they learned from that as well. So they were eternal learners because they listened to often winning leaders speaking to how that process worked. So we found this incredible listening to create value that we hadn't considered before. So we wrote it down as listening to create value. And we found that the engagement level of those teams would soar. And when the engagement level soars, performance soars. What am I missing there?
Yeah, I don't think you're missing anything. This is just a real culture builder. You could really feel it in these teams, that this was really one of the things that they did to create culture. Is they really valued the team. They asked questions. They wanted to know, what created winning results. And what you said there about not talking over them, that was key. They asked a question and then paid attention. I think that was just something that overall, certainly all of them exhibited this, but it was really unique in each situation, how they did it. But the core skill there is really that listening piece. It really does create the culture that you're looking for.
I also think, though, that the leader becomes the learner when they're listening.
Yeah, true.
So when the A group is talking about how they achieve something, the leader needs to listen, because they're likely achieving a number that the leader's not achieving in total.
Right.
It's like, holy crap. How are they doing this? When people listen to you, you feel valued. So there's nothing else that can replace that. And in most organizations, that doesn't exist. In most leaders, this listening to create value doesn't exist. And it may be difficult in a remote type environment as well. In a remote environment, you may be always, as a leader, in the position of speaking, and you may lack listening. So just think about how to create that in your environment. If your team is remote, ensure that you have a system of listening to them, and in listening to your top performers to understand it, and so on and so on. It's significant, and it may well be lacking today. We wrote Gapology long before COVID, long before the work environment we're in today. It's made it more relevant than ever, which is great. But the world's changed, and as leaders, I think when we're in the Zoom calls, it's tough to listen versus speak. We're the leader. I got to speak. I got to talk.
Right.
I'm the leader. Listen to create value. Thank people for what they've contributed, what they've said. But listen. They literally may know quite a bit more than you about whatever the topic is. And you can spread that to the entire team then. This is a big one. And I think it's a big gap.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one, Mark, number 6, create a shared vision. What are your thoughts there?
Well, so we wrote a book called Speed of Purpose, and it's really about this. It's about a team having a purpose, having something they can buy into, having something everyone buys into, tying every role to the purpose, to this shared vision, which you could call, the same thing. And it gives them a reason to come to work, a reason to perform. It creates an engagement that's off the charts. So we found that the winning leaders create a shared vision around purpose, and that they spread that through the entire team. So when you speak to the team, they talk about the same things: why they're there, what they're there for, what this vision, what this purpose is. We have found that nothing replaces this, that there's nothing more significant that drives people to work, to perform at a high level every day, other than shared vision, which again you could call purpose. And we challenge organizations today in our Speed of Purpose workshops to create a purpose that will last for 100 years. And we have them think about it in that context. If you were to write your purpose for the next 100 years, what would it look like? And people, millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Xs, we hear today lack purpose in their work, that they're looking for that. So this next generation is certainly looking for you as a leader to provide them with this vision, and it can be unbelievably successful for you.
Yeah, in remote work teams, I think this is really critical, and it's hard to sometimes reinforce when you're working, miles and miles apart. But this is one of those things that gives meaning to people's work. When you look at engagement levels of a team, if you're struggling there, if your team's struggling to be engaged, this is something you really want to take a look at, because winning leaders absolutely surround their team in purpose. They give meaning to the work that they do.
Yeah, and it's of great significance. So if we were to just number these in relation to their importance, this would be one of the top 3. So make sure that your team has a shared vision that comes from you, and you can have them participate in the development of purpose if it isn't there yet. And that may create an ownership, but again, set the standard that it will be in place in 100 years. Think
Mm-hmm.
of it in that context. And we found that to work significantly. So,
Yep. So number 7, develop their replacement.
yeah, so we have found that underline that, ALL underlined, all of the top performers had already developed their replacement and they were on the team. Wow. So some of us would be concerned with developing our replacement. Oh my God, they might replace me. Versus, wow, if I have my replacement on the team, we're going to perform at a level that no one can even dream of. Yeah, that's what it's all about. So some of our top performers that we've worked with, top winning leaders, had 2 or 3 of their replacements already on their team. Can you imagine the results that were being produced by those teams? Industry leading, worldwide leading. Think about it. So, and how great are you? And what happens to your career when you produce your replacement over and over and over again? I guess you get promoted to that next level. So it's an incredibly positive thing. And we hadn't really thought about it, but suddenly it was there. It was like, oh my God, those leaders that create their replacements, that develop them, get promoted, and they're the ones that run the organization in the future.
Yeah. This is something that at first I thought it was just a developmental, like training and, type of an effort. But what I actually saw here was that this is how results were driven. So the overall performance of the team grew because that A team, your top performers that are promotable or whatever, are continuing to be developed and grown in their skills, which enhances the skills of the entire team. These people, they believed in development, not just for development's sake, but also to, improve performance.
Well, when you are developing people that can replace you, you are learning a great deal from them, and you're getting better as well.
Right.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I recently found out that a rookie district manager that I hired runs the organization that I used to operate.
Mm.
Think about that.
Yeah. Wow.
I spent a lot of time with him. It was tremendous, and he runs the organization today. That's a characteristic of winning leaders. Think about it. Are you developing people that can replace you? If you are, the organization's going to grow and thrive like never before. This is huge. It's not a threat to you. It's an enhancement to your career.
Right. Yeah.
It's a reflection of your career. It's a big deal. This one is big.
Yep. Okay. So next one, number 8. Let's move on to that one. So this one is interesting to me. So that is create a bias for action.
Yeah. So Gapology is KIA. Close the knowledge gap, close the importance gap, close the action gap. So we found that the winning leaders were able to complete that continuum. They closed the knowledge gap, closed the importance gap, and thus closed the action gap and created action towards the right things, towards the set of very clear expectations that were set. So this skill, regardless of your industry, the organization that you're in, whatever you do, is irreplaceable. Those that can create the action to close the action gap will win, period. And those that understand that it starts at knowledge, moves to importance, moves to action, which is the fundamental steps of Gapology, win. And it's all about KIA. And we're trying to get the Kia, motor company to send us a check. for the KIA, but this is it. So when you as a leader get KIA and there's no other order, there's nothing else, and the bias for action is what creates the numbers. Once you get that, it's huge for your organization. I was telling Brian today that I interacted with someone I'd never met who had read Gapology, IMBAR, and Speed of Purpose and had implemented those within her team. And she categorized it as career-changing, life-changing, and life-changing for many people. And bias for action is what it's all about.
Yep, exactly. And I don't really have anything more to add there, Mark. I think that's exactly right there. These are teams, leaders that are really inclined to action rather than non-action. They're seeking out the right action to take and just went after it. So let's move to number 9. So teach and learn simultaneously. What do you think on this one?
Well, so sometimes leaders think that they're simply teachers. That's incorrect. They have to be continuous learners. They have to learn ongoing because things change, and what they teach is built upon what they've learned. And so the leaders from the past sort of, set their feet in the ground and built everything on what they were teaching. They failed to learn as everything changed around them. So we're in a world that changes continuously. Things change. We saw that with COVID. We've seen that with many other things like that. The remote work environment has changed everything. So leaders must be learners in order to be relevant. So they have to not only teach, but learn and teach and learn and teach and learn. So great leaders, write this down, great leaders never stop learning. It doesn't stop. You never get there. When you think you've got there, you're wrong. You have to learn more. So in order to be a great leader, you must continuously learn.
I love that. Great leaders never stop learning, and that is so true. And honestly, that's how we have built the organization that we're in. The Gapology Institute, our team is. We started out by learning. We were curious. We were eternally curious on these things, and then we started teaching it. And then when we're teaching it, we started learning more. And for the past 15 years that we've been teaching this, we continue to learn every single time we do a workshop or have a phone conversation or a coaching conversation with someone. We're constantly picking up new things. And that's why the one book has morphed into, what do we have, 5 books now. So simultaneously learn and teach. Those things do go hand in hand.
Simultaneously learn and teach.
Yep.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Write that down. I don't have that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
That one could be on a t-shirt.
Well, think about it. No one's ever said that before.
Yeah.
You have to simultaneously learn and teach. Wow.
Yeah, we haven't done a t-shirt for a while. We'll have to do that.
Wow. I mean, we're going to make $50 on that t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
That's significant.
I think it's like $2, but all right. So the last one, Mark, bring her home. It's close performance gaps is number 10.
Yeah. So the winning leaders close performance gaps. They understand that when there is a gap in the results, that it is behavioral and that it all comes back to gapology, and that it's either a knowledge gap, an importance gap, or an action gap, or all three, combination of those, and they close those performance gaps. It's an endless pursuit of greatness. You need to write that down, Brian. We don't have a t-shirt for that one. Endless pursuit of greatness is what this is all about. So when you want to be great, you're constantly closing knowledge, importance, and action gaps, KIA. It never ends. It's always behavioral. That's one of the keys. It's behavioral. So as leaders, we are affecting behavior. We are responsible for behavior of our team. It becomes easier when we are all tied to the same purpose and that we all understand the clear expectations and the measurements of our performance. We found that the winning leaders are crazy about closing performance gaps. That's what they do. They go after it every day. They go after it with their team. Gapology is all about closing performance gaps, and that's number 10. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the key with this one for me, the first 9 prevent performance gaps. Those are some of the things that you can do to prevent them. We certainly have our root solutions that is the process, but in winning leaders, that's what's really setting up the success. Every leader is not going to have 100% success all the time. You're going to have performance gaps, but it's how do you identify what the gap is? What is the associated root solution? What's the method, the tool, the process to close it? So recognizing that performance gaps happen is something that winning leaders do, and they're on the constant lookout for them so that they can quickly, completely, systematically follow the process and close them.
I would add to that most of the winning leaders realize that when there's a gap, that they are the gap.
Right, yeah.
And they can close it. So the leader is most often the gap. So they have a recognition of that. They're not ashamed of it. It's a great thing to figure out, holy crap, if I just change this, we're going to win. Oh, okay. Got it. Let's do it. So they're very willing to accept the fact that they are often the gap. And when they accept responsibility for that and make adjustment, boom, we're there.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this is that if you recognize that you have a gap, that you're the gap, that is in your control. You can control yourself. It's a little harder to control other people, but if you identify that there's a gap that you own, you can close it.
Yeah. Some of the organizations we work with are nationwide, as an example. And in some cases, they've never met the people that work for them. They've only met them on Zoom or, whatever the forum. And so Gapology becomes incredibly significant and relevant in those organizations because you as a leader may be managing people, on the other side of the country that you haven't talked to in person, and you've got to close their gap. So we're here to help. The Gapology workshops we've conducted, Brian does a lot of them. He's amazing. They've affected nationwide organizations. It's just been crazy the impact we've had, and we continue to do so on podcasts. So,
yep. Before we go, Mark, I'd like to just kind of run through the 10 just to recap it for everyone real quick. I know they were scribbling notes and that kind of thing, but let me give you one more run through. 10 traits. So eternal curiosity, set clear expectations, reject mediocrity, accept responsibility, listen to create value, create a shared vision, develop your replacement, create a bias for action, teach and learn simultaneously, and close performance gaps. So those are the 10. And one thing I'll mention, things that you don't see on the list. I think this is interesting, Mark. Actually, we should put this in here. Things that are not on the list. Creating fear in your team, threatening your team, writing people up. Some of those kinds of things are not on this list. So think about that. Those are some of the traits that we've seen in some of the other teams. So
So if I wanted to go back and find the top 10, are you going to post those on a blog? Where can I get them?
Yeah. I'll have to recap these here. I haven't written a blog in forever, so I'll have to do that for this one.
So where would I find it?
Yeah, just go to gapology.org and click on the blog link there. And I'll work on that later this week, and we'll get that posted for everybody so you have that as a reference.
Excellent. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Let us know if you need our help. We're here to help. Get in touch with us.
Okay. Sounds great.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. See ya. All right. That'll do it from here. For more information on Gapology or Gapology Inspirations, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everyone have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.